brink of a so-called angel number. The country lists its lowest daily COVID-19 infections this year. The health department says there are 1,019 additional cases. The country has seen the lowest daily tallies for 2022 in the past 4 days, all falling below 2,000. There are more than 56,600 people currently sick with COVID, nearly 3,000 new survivors and 13 deaths. The DOH says 5 testing laboratories did not submit data, adding that the numbers are based on laboratory outputs from Sunday, which traditionally has the lowest per week. Now, the independent Okta Research Group says Metro Manila's COVID-19 positivity rate is now down to 4.9% for the first time this year. The positivity rate is the percentage of tested people with positive results. The World Health Organization has set a benchmark of below 5% for at least 2 weeks for countries or regions to reopen. Okta's Guido David says Metro Manila last saw a positivity rate this low on December 26 last year. That was before the start of the surge driven by the highly contagious Omicron variant. Now, despite the encouraging data, Okta says Metro Manila remains at low risk for COVID-19 transmission. Before the capital region or any other area can shift to alert level 1, the health department says 80% of senior citizens and persons with comorbidities should be fully vaccinated. It says this is to ensure the population is protected against further virus transmission once majority of restrictions are gone.
So dati po, ang atin pong nire-require lang was just 70% for senior citizens. Ngayon, tinaasan na po to 80% kasi mataas na po ang bakunahan natin at marami na po tayong bakuna sa ngayon. So hindi na po natin kailangan magkaroon ng rason kung bakit mababa pa rin pagdating sa ating mga nakakatanda at sa ating mga persons with comorbidities. The very reason why we are having this kind of target, increased target for senior citizens and those with comorbidities, dahil alam po natin sila po yung pinaka-vulnerable pagdating sa COVID-19. At gusto natin, pag tayo ay nag-de-escalate to alert level 1, yung new normal natin, protektado po itong mga vulnerable population.
As of Tuesday, 3 million senior citizens and people with comorbidities are still unvaccinated. Establishment and transportation capacities may operate at full capacity, subject to minimum public health standards under an alert level 1 status. So far, at least 5 mayors here in Metro Manila say they will vote for the least restrictive alert level status. They are among them San Juan's Francis Zamora, Toby Tiangco of Navotas, Edwin Olivares of Parañaque, Miguel Ponce of Pateros, and Joy Belmonte of Quezon City. All mayors are scheduled to meet tonight to discuss the matter. Now, the government recalibrating its COVID-19 vaccination strategy. Vaccine czar Carlito Galvez explains the number of doses administered per day has dropped from 1 million to less than 500,000. Galvez also notes the low turnout in the recent national vaccine days. Authorities will now be doing house-to-house vaccinations and bringing inoculation sites closer to those who still need it. The government also scrambling to convince those who have received their complete primary dose series to take booster shots. President Duterte joins the appeal. Here's the president in his own words.
Pag-booster dose na kayo para ang karagdagang proteksyon laban sa COVID-19, lalo na sa mga variant nito tulad ng Omicron. Huwag kayong mangamba dahil ang ating bakuna ay pinag-aralang mabuti ng ating mga eksperto. Ito ay garantisadong di kalidad, ligtas at higit sa lahat, epektibo at mabubuhay ka. Yung hindi na makabakuna, sigurado patay yun pagdating ng panahon. Tigkas ng ulo na.
So far, 62.5 million Filipinos have been fully vaccinated. That is 69% of the 90 million target population. More than 50 commuters got boosted against COVID-19 as the LRT2 kicks off its vaccination drive at the Recto station in Manila. Light Rail Transit Authority Administrator Jerry Regino says most vaccinees received their third dose. Commuters may get vaccinated at the Recto station on select days tomorrow. LRT2 will open its vaccination site at the Antipolo station. We're flashing the schedule on your screen. Another inoculation site may soon rise in Cubao station. Vaccinees are urged to pre-register online so screeners can provide you the appropriate vaccine brand. Registration sites are flashed on your screens.
Pwede po mga walk-in po. Kaya lang ho, pag walk-in ho nila, magre-register ho sila use online ho doon sa vaccination site. Pagkatapos ho, they will wait for their QR code. Tapos saka ho sila pwedeng magpabakuna na ho. But it will not take time ho dahil madali lang naman po magparehistro at hindi naman ho gaano ang pila. Kaya huwag ho sila mag-aalala kung walking ho sila. Hindi ho naman gaano katagal ang kanilang pila.
World headlines now. The United States slamming Russia after its troops entered separatist-held regions of eastern Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, dismisses as nonsense the claim of Russia that it deployed forces in what it called a peacekeeping mission. Western leaders cautioned the latest move could mark the beginning of an invasion that they have been warning about for weeks. CNN's Isabel Rosales has more.
U.S. intelligence and satellite images reveal Russia going full speed ahead with military preps.
Today might be that day, and we hope that's not the case, which is why we continue to exhaust every possible diplomatic option here going forward.
In a TV broadcast, Russian President Vladimir Putin accusing the West of threats. The Russian president says he is officially recognizing the separatist regions in Ukraine as independent states. Putin airing his grievances about the breakup of the former Soviet republics.
Modern Ukraine from the beginning and in its totality has been created by Russia.
The U.S. and allies warn every indication shows Russia is preparing to invade.
These are not the actions of a Russian government fulfilling its repeated declarations that it has no intention of invading Ukraine.
The U.S. also says it has credible information about a Russian kill list, writing in a letter to the United Nations that Russia is identifying Ukrainians to be killed or sent to camps. The Kremlin denying the claim, calling it absolute fiction.
We believe that any military operation of the size, scope, and magnitude of what we believe the Russians are planning will be extremely violent. It will cost the lives of Ukrainians and Russians, civilians and military personnel alike.
The Russian escalation at the front lines is at odds with what Putin has said publicly. Putin agreeing to a summit with President Joe Biden.
He can do the right thing by finding a diplomatic path forward.
Biden accepting on the condition Russia not invade Ukraine. In Washington, Isabel Rosales.
The U.S. and the European Union are set to impose sanctions on Moscow following the unacceptable entry of its troops. Coming up, presidential aspirant Manny Pacquiao asserts his leadership in PDP Laban as his fellow hopeful Isko Moreno seeks the party's endorsement. And as the country faces a leadership transition in the coming months, we look back at the historic People Power Revolution of 1986 that changed the nation's political course. Details after the break.
What are debates for? Sure, it's not mandatory, but participation says a lot about the candidate. It demonstrates their profound national commitment ahead of the general elections on May 9th.
On Saturday, February 26th, CNN Philippines will ask the vice presidential candidates the hard questions.
And on February 27th, we'll turn our attention to the men and women seeking the highest office of
crash in Real, Quezon on Monday. A policeman died and 2 others, the pilots, were injured in the incident. The PNP helicopter was on its way to Balesin Island to fetch Carlos and his family from a vacation after their commercial flight was canceled. Malacanang cannot say for now if Carlos is accountable pending investigation by the Interior Department.
Kami po ay nakikiramay sa pamilya ng isang crew member na namatay dahil sa crash na ito at we wish the 2 injured a speedy recovery. We will await the report of the DILG. It is currently being investigated.
Despite running under a different party, presidential candidate Manny Pacquiao argues he is still the president of PDP Laban after rival Manila Mayor Isko Moreno sought the ruling party's endorsement. Sian Arcangel with that story.
At ramdam ko po yung mga sinasabi niya.
Senator Manny Pacquiao insists he's still the president of PDP Laban and all matters related to endorsing a presidential bet should go through him. This as his fellow presidential candidate, Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, expressed his desire to get the backing of the party of President Duterte. Pacquiao filed his candidacy under the PROMDI party amid infighting with the PDP Laban faction led by Energy Secretary Alfonso Cusi. There's a pending petition before the Commission on Elections seeking to declare Pacquiao and his allies as illegitimate officials of PDP Laban.
Po ang presidente ng partido, so dadaan din sa akin lahat yan. Hintayin lang natin kung may mga lumapit sa atin na gustong sumuporta.
BBM.
Cusi, however, says seeking PDP Laban's endorsement comes with strings attached. In a statement, he says the candidate supported by the party should commit to continuing Duterte's programs. Despite the infighting, Pacquiao says he's open to reuniting with the Cusi faction. But Senator Coco Pimentel, whose late father was one of the party's founders, shuts the door of reconciliation with Cusi. He warns there are consequences for the candidate who will accept the endorsement of the Cusi faction.
Para na si those who actively seek Cusi's endorsement should pay the political price kung dating ng panahon, pagdating ng panahon. Ganun lang yun. Kaya mag-ingat sila. May manok na kami. Ang tunay na PDP Laban, may manok na. Meron na kami for President Manny Pacquiao, for Vice President, his choice, who is now Lito Atienza.
With Duterte still mum on the candidate he will endorse, Pacquiao says he's counting on the support of the masses to help him win the presidency in May. Sian Arcangel, CNN, Philippines.
On to other presidential aspirants. Senator Ping Lacson and his running mate Tito Soto get the support of former Senator and DICT Secretary Gringo Onasan. Onasan is also part of the senatorial slate of the Marcos Duterte Unity Team and is one of the senatorial bets whom President Duterte had endorsed. Vice President
Pangunahing pangangailangan ng ating lipunan, ng ating demokrasya ay kaayusan. Yan po ang plataforma at programa ni Senador Ping Lacson at ni Senator Tito Soto. Kailangan pagkatapos ng halalan, magkaisang muli.
Hindi ko napagil yung sarili ko, yakapin sa kanina kasi na makita ko na kasama dito sa aming sentablado, talagang it was really a pleasant surprise. No? Dahil alam niyo naman, di ba, Senate, kami yung talaga original na macho black. At welcome.
Vice President Leni Robredo says there is still more that needs to be done for Marawi City. She notes while the Office of the Vice President has provided assistance for the war-torn city since the start, she only has limited resources. Some of her projects in Marawi include the construction of houses and schools. As for the vice presidential candidates, Dr. Willie Ong says he will continue his campaign even if some groups are pairing his running mate, Isko Moreno, with Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte. Moreno's team, for its part, says Ong is the Manila Mayor's only vice presidential bet.
Para sa akin kasi, focus lang ako sa kailangan kong gawin. So tuloy-tuloy tayo hanggang May 9. Walang atrasan to. Wala akong galit sa puso ko kasi hindi siya makakatulong.
Sara Duterte vows the fair enforcement of the war on drugs and criminality as she looks to continue the campaign of her father, President Duterte. If she wins the vice presidency, she also said the nationwide crime rate dropped under the Duterte administration. That statement comes amid backlash from human rights groups and international organizations on the thousands of deaths under the drug war.
Ang gagawin natin is kung ano yung ginawa natin doon sa Davao City, i-emphasize natin sa ating mga law enforcement agencies, particularly sa ating mga kapulisan sa Philippine National Police natin na ang unang-unang trabaho nila isang pantay-pantay na enforcement ng ating batas. That is the reason why Davao City is awarded one of the best city police office dahil naiintindihan nila kung ano yung mga dapat nila gawin, particularly against anti-criminality.
And the wife of Senator Kiko Pangilinan, megastar Sharon Cuneta, lends star power to his campaign sortie in Tarlac City. Various farmers groups expressed support for Robredo and Pangilinan during their visit. For the first time this election season, we will see almost all presidential candidates share one stage for a much-awaited in-person debate. 9 out of 10 candidates are joining the CNN Philippines presidential debate on February 27, Sunday, at the University of Santo Tomas in Manila. Former Senator Bongbong Marcos declined to join because of a conflict in schedule, while his running mate, Davao City Mayor Sara Duterte, turned down our request for her to participate in the vice presidential debate, but gave no reason. Deputy Speaker Lito Atienza will also not attend as he will undergo knee replacement surgery. 7 other candidates will participate in the VP debate this Saturday, February 26, also at UST. Join us as we remain committed to helping the Filipino make informed decisions on May 9th. We need answers from the men
And the woman,
who are seeking the highest office of the land.
unedited, unfiltered, coming soon.
A CNN Philippines special presentation, The Filipino Votes 2022 Presidential Debate. The Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines, or CBCP, also pitches in to help you choose who to vote for in the upcoming polls. Caloocan Bishop and CBCP President Pablo Virgilio says, I think that should be Pablo David, says a fitting president is one with integrity, is patriotic, and has the moral high ground. He or she must also be able to give a voice to the poor and the vulnerable and stand for what is right. CBCP has not endorsed the presidential candidate but offered this set of criteria to further help Filipino voters choose the right leader.
Number 1, ang mabuting Kristiyano ay boboto ng tama at ayon sa konsensya. Siya ay boboto para sa kandidatong may tunay na determinasyon na matigil na ang illegal gambling, ang illegal drug trade, ang illegal logging, ang illegal mining, at iba pang mga industriya na nakasisira sa ating kalikasan, sa kultura at mabuting pagpapahalaga ng mga Pilipino. Siya ay boboto para sa magpapatuloy sa tunay na diwa ng People Power Revolution na nag-restore ng demokrasya sa ating bansa.
February 22, 1986 was the start of the 4-day People Power Revolution that toppled the dictatorial regime of then-President Ferdinand Marcos. 36 years on and ahead of an upcoming national elections in May, continuing the story and legacy of EDSA remains a struggle. Our Tristan Nadalo reports.
Filipinos from all walks of life showed the world on February 1986 that unity was possible to oust a dictatorship. The bloodless and peaceful revolution known as EDSA People Power showcased what Filipinos can do as one. 36 years on, a political analyst says Filipinos will never forget the story of EDSA.
The EDSA revolution of 1986 is already part of our political DNA as a nation because EDSA represents not just a revolution against a dictatorship, nor it represents the sentiment of the people.
Aris Arugay adds the EDSA legacy will keep Filipinos determined to demand good governance from their elected leaders and at the same time be on guard against efforts to downplay the historic uprising.
They're afraid that the Filipino will again feel empowered against abusive, corrupt politicians. So they try to undermine it. They try to say that it has failed.
Besides the people's support to immunity, EDSA has been associated with the ousted leader, the late former President Ferdinand Marcos. But over the last 3 decades, the Marcos family is back in the political limelight, with the only son and namesake, Bongbong Marcos, bidding for the presidential seal behind the family name.
Puro kasi pagpapasama ang ginawa nila, puro pambubugbog sa mga Marcos. Ang tawag nga namin dyan, pagdating sa eleksyon, nanalo siya, destiny ka ko yan.
Supporters believe in the Marcos slogan.
Yung kanyang panawagan na magkaroon ng pagkaisa tayo, pagkakaisa, unity. Napakaganda ng kanyang hangarin.
But for those who lived through the regime and witnessed EDSA, a Marcos return to power will mean something else.
Kailangan talaga natin ng unity. Pero hindi si Marcos ang leader na makakapag-unite sa taong bayan. In fact, kung manalo siya, our country will continue to be torn apart.
Bonnie Ilagan says he will continue his fight to prevent the return of the Marcoses in Malacanang and to keep retelling the story of EDSA. But he admits the task is daunting.
Teenager ako nung nagsimulang lumaban sa diktadurang Marcos. Long hair ako noon, Tristan. Ngayon, I'm more than 70 years old. I've lost my hair. But I think I've not lost my commitment to fight the restoration of Marcos.
Today, a new generation of Filipinos have different views about EDSA people power.
Depende. Kung ano yung paniniwala mo, kung bubuhay mo, buhay siya. Pero kung i-let go mo na, wala na.
Para sa akin, pwede nang wala, parang patay ng diwa ng EDSA.
For some analysts, the story of EDSA is a work in progress, and it goes beyond political personalities and dynasties. They say that the EDSA story is about people who keep democracy and governance alive. Tristan Udalo, CNN Philippines.
Tarlac's 1st District Representative Charlie Cojuangco has died. He was 58. Cojuangco's wife, China Hocson Cojuangco, announced his passing in a Facebook post this morning. Cause of death was not disclosed. Cojuangco reportedly suffered an aneurysm in a circuit race in October last year. The congressman was the son of the late businessman and sports patron Eduardo Danding Cojuangco Jr. Still on Newsnight, America's Got Talent contestant Nightbird dies after a bout with cancer. And find out why today's date, February 22, 2022, is sparking the interest of many. Stay tuned. Your vote, your voice, our future.
Demokratiko tayong bansa. Ito lang yung paraan natin para mailabas kung ano yung saloobin natin. Kaya kahit isang boto lang yan, bumoto ka. Kaya napaka-importante ng boto mo. Kasi boses mo yan.
Bilang isang volunteer sa election, sobrang halaga ng participation, role na gagampanan ng mga teachers kasi kami yung magpa-facilitate nitong botohan. So kami ang magbibilang, mag-aayos, napakabigat.
Welcome back to Newsnight. Here's another update on the investigation into the PNP helicopter crash in Real, Quezon yesterday. A policeman died, 2 others, the pilots, were injured in the incident. The PNP helicopter was on its way to Balasin Island to fetch PNP Chief General Jonard Carlos and his family from vacation after their commercial flight was cancelled. Malacanang cannot say for now if Carlos is accountable, pending investigation by the Interior Department. In a statement, Carlos says his request for an administrative flight to transfer him back to Camp Crame was allowed and issued based on PNP regulations. Carlos also says he regrets the accident happened and vows a thorough investigation will be conducted. Sports news now. South Korea has withdrawn from the February window of the 2023 FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers 2 days before the first games in Manila. South Korean news outlet Jump Ball reports a player tested positive for COVID-19, leaving the other 12 as close contacts. The team was originally set to face Gilas Pilipinas on Thursday, February 24, and again next Monday, February 28. And the singer who stole the hearts of audiences and judges of America's Got Talent, Jane Marczewski, or Nightbird, has died. Marczewski succumbed to cancer on Sunday. The breakout star became a fan favorite on the show last year after performing her original song, It's Okay. This earned her a golden buzzer from Simon Cowell, letting Nightbird advance to the live shows. But she had to leave the show to focus on her battle with cancer.
And I wrote a little bit of it in my caption when I had to share this bad news, and it's pretty beat up, but I still got dreams. And the chorus of the song goes, I still got some magic in me. I don't feel it, but I still believe. The music stopped, but I can still sing. I'm pretty beat up, but I still got dreams.
The America's Got Talent franchise, as well as hosts Jerry Cruz and Heidi Klum, paid tribute to Nightbird on social media. Marczewski was 31. Well, back here at home in the movies, megastar Sharon Cuneta will soon show off her skills in a Hollywood film. Based on the award-winning book, The Mango Bride, Sharon reposted an article from entertainment outlet Variety confirming her role. The actress will also be an executive producer of the movie, which she hopes would open doors for more Pinoys in the film industry abroad. Today's date, February 22, 2022, has caught the attention of netizens. People call the sequence of twos as an angel number, which is said to contain messages from the spiritual universe. The number 2, linked to balance and harmony, may symbolize a time of peace and stability. But for some netizens, the amusing repetition simply means good fortune for the day. This person is hoping to win big with the day's luck by betting on the lottery. Another netizen says the day has yet to work its magic on them, but they're not giving up on gaining balance this February 22. And for some, it is a special day for other reasons. This birthday celebrant only wishes for a good outcome in the May polls, so only the best leaders for the country are elected. Well, here's to a happy and harmonious Tuesday for all of us. And that is it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. and on Politics as usual at 8:30 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by... Every night, we take a hard look at the stories and provide you with multiple points of view from here and around the world. Now, we'll bring you more news you can use from the trading floor and the global markets and bring you more news. A former Ifugao congressman seeks to represent indigenous people as he guns for a Senate seat in next year's polls. Let's get up close with senatorial aspirant Teddy Bagila. Teddy, thank you so much for joining us. You were elected a lawmaker in 2010, and before Congress, you served as Ifugao governor for 2 terms and as a mayor from 1995 to the year 2000. Bakit mo gustong tumakbo para sa Senado?
Well, as you mentioned, I would like to represent the indigenous peoples or the sectors who normally do not have adequate and effective representation in the Senate. Kasi if you look at the profile of the Senate, that's the political elite that we have in the Philippines. No? A lot of political dynasties, big business, no? Celebrities. No? But we don't have voices from the marginalized, no? Indigenous peoples included. Kasama na rin dyan yung mga magsasaka. Because while I'm not claiming to be a farmer, but I have fought for agrarian reform beneficiaries' rights of persons with disabilities, no, in the bills that I have pushed in Congress. So sa akin, this is a fight for people who do not normally have a strong voice in the Senate.
So, Teddy, ano masasabi mo sa mga kandidato who say they represent marginalized groups but they're not members of this group?
Yes, precisely. That's also the reason why we don't have a lot of progressive laws being passed in the Senate, because the interests are mostly with the elite, no, the people who are in power both politically and economically. Kaya nga, you know, if we need, for instance, to solve the problems of the agricultural sector, kadalasan the solution is band-aid solutions like rice tarification. No? But we don't address the roots of the problem, which is wanton land conversion of prime agriculture, which is the lack of agricultural investments in the agricultural sector in terms of infrastructure, in terms of credit assistance and capacity building to farmers. That requires very progressive legislation that addresses systemic problems within the industry. Pero sa ngayon, because the people who are in the Senate we're supposed to be passing legislation to address problems of various sectors, are there to protect their own interests, which is political dynasties and big business.
And you mentioned about the agricultural industry, no? This comprises a large chunk of our economy. At ang ating mga magsasaka, Teddy, have been suffering due to this COVID-19 pandemic. What should the government do to crack down on smuggled vegetables coming from China, which leaves Filipino farmers at the losing end?
Yeah, that's very important, no? Fighting smuggling, which is not just a recent phenomenon. It has happened in the past. Every time na pumapasok ang smuggled Chinese goods, no? Ang kawawa talaga is the farmers directly. Especially from my region, because my region, the Cordilleras, produces vegetables, highland vegetables for Metro Manila markets. No? So I think there has to be a stronger enforcement of the laws. It's a matter really of enforcing the law. There's always a law against smuggling. So kailangan palakasin pa natin, no, yung pag-prevent natin ng smuggled goods. Also at the same time, I think it's high time that we look into the industry as a whole, the vegetable industry, because it isn't really resilient at all. No? It's always subject to climatic changes, to natural disasters, to smuggling, no? Even in terms of the food supply chain, no? Ang mga gardeners, they're subject to the machinations of traders. And I'm not saying we should do away with traders, but the problem is with our food supply chain, there are just so many layers of trading. Kaya from the market, and let's say 20 pesos ang presyo ng isang kamatis, ilang layers of trading ang pagdadaanan dyan. Finally, when it reaches the market, it's so expensive. So lugi yung farmer because the traders dictate the prices, and lugi rin yung consumer. So again, we have to look into the systemic causes of the problems of the agricultural industry.
At saka sa importation at saka sa smuggling na ito, no, Teddy, maraming sa ating mga kababayang magsasaka ang nawawalan ng hanap buhay, and many of them have lost their jobs. And of course, during this pandemic, many of our Filipino kababayans have also lost their jobs in many other industries. And right now, the economy is still weak and faces a long road to recovery. If you become senator, how will you try to jumpstart the economy and create jobs through legislation?
Well, nabanggit naman ni VP Leni yung programa natin. Immediate na ayuda muna sa mga magsasaka. I think that's important. No? There are a lot of businesses who have shut down a lot, especially small and medium enterprises. So yun yung talagang kinakailangan bigyan muna ng support, no? Bailout, no? If you might say so. And ganun rin doon sa mga farmers na affected by this rice tarification. So double whammy. Rice tarification, bread prices of palay, Sabi nga nung isang kausap ko na magkasaka, it's no longer profitable for them to continue farming, and then tinamaan pa ng pandemic, no? So we need to provide them with immediate assistance, no? And then, as I've said, look at the systemic problems, no, of the agricultural industry.
Oo.
Non-conversion is one. In terms also of a major investment program in agriculture in terms of infrastructure. In my 9 years as a congressman and also 15 years, no, in the local governments, wala pa ako nakakita talaga ng malaking investment program in agriculture. I remember we have roads to tourism areas. Okay, help the tourism industry. We even have roads for small and medium enterprises. Pero our farm to market roads, wala. Our irrigations, a lot of our agricultural lands are not irrigated the whole year round.
Pero Teddy, korupsyon, problema rin ba ito sa agrikultura?
Definitely. Corruption is pervasive everywhere, whether it's in
Paano
industry.
ba natin
whether
lalabanan
it's-
ito? How do we fight it?
Well, ang importante muna is the leadership. That's very important because it begins, we're very personality oriented. No? Ang laki ng ating tiwala sa Pangulo, whoever is elected as president, no? We place unto herself, no, the challenge of eradicating corruption, no, in the Philippines. Well, I always believe that corruption is dictated by our current political culture, no? Pero leadership really begins at the top because that's how we view our politicians. So if we're going to eradicate corruption, it begins first with the president. And then we have to look into our officials, the officials that we elect. And then the bureaucracy follows after. Because sometimes, no, sa ating kaugalian, no, may mga nagsasabi na ang corruption, bahagi na yan ng kultura natin, which is not true, no? But yung mga give and take, yung pakisama, those are the things I've noticed, no, in my years in government. It's very, very difficult to fight that culture of corruption because people equate it as something that is a Filipino value, which is not, no, which is not. That's why sa akin, it really begins at the top, and then we have to look now into laws that will provide or will strengthen more transparency in government. Isang ang tinutulak ko, Rico, is freedom of information.
Right.
It's something that I think would be able to engender more citizen participation in governance and be able to prevent instances of corruption. Kasi ang nangyayari sa Pilipinas, no? Corruption happens and then we investigate it. But if we have a law, progressive law such as FOI, then the citizens will have access to information about government transactions. So sa simula pa lamang, we might be able to prevent acts of corruption.
Oo. Yung pet dog mo dyan sa bahay, tumatahol, Teddy. I think
Yan
he
nga.
really
Galit
truly
sa
agrees
katiwalian,
with all the issues that you are sharing with us. Apart from agriculture, you have also been a champion for different progressive advocacies on women, LGBTQI+. How do you plan to further these initiatives in the Senate?
Well, there's this anti-discrimination bill that I've fought for in the House of Representatives, no? Yung sexual orientation and gender identity and expression, no? Law. Maandar sa House pero hindi masyado sa Senado. No? So I think that's something that I will continue fighting for in the Senate. There's also this general anti-discrimination law, not just for the LGBT, but for all sectors who feel that they are marginalized or they are discriminated upon. No? Kasama na dyan ang katutubo, even senior citizens, no? Persons with disabilities. So this is a general anti-discrimination law, which I think we might be able to pass in the Senate if we have more advocates, no, in the upper house.
Agriculture, anti-discrimination bill. What about sa droga, sa issue ng droga? How should the new government fight this war on drugs? Should it continue to adopt an ironclad, no-nonsense anti-drug policy?
Well, we have to look into the drug problem as a mental health problem. It's not just a matter of law enforcement. Of course, we always would have programs or a drive against criminality, a drive against drug addiction, but it's also a mental health problem. Kaya nga itong National Mental Health Law, which I was one of the authors, which is now passed, that's something that we can build upon, no? Because nagdodroga lang naman ang tao kung sila ay stressed, sila ay depressed, no? So when we look at health, it shouldn't be just the physical health, no, but also the mental health of Filipinos. It is also a social problem because of poverty. That's why people are forced to enter a life of crime, forced to be drug addicts. So those are the various dimensions of the drug problem. It's not just a law enforcement na kamao lang ang paraan, no? But we have to look also into the other social and mental health dimensions of the problem.
Teddy, before we end the first part of our interview, no, surveys are showing more familiar names leading this senatorial race. In the surveys that have been coming out, no, wala ka pa sa top 12 because you're up against long-time political personalities, and even some of them are from political dynasties. It will really be an uphill battle for you.
Yeah, it's something that I acknowledge. You know, sa Senado naman, it's about resources and popularity. It's a popularity game usually, no? So definitely, political dynasties have the advantage of logistics, the name recall. But I'd like to think that there's also a significant number of Filipino voters who are also looking for fresh faces. More progressive ideas, no? Fresh ideas. No? Like ako, I'm bringing in the perspective of a Katatubo who fights for nature, who fights for the environment. That is something that we rarely discuss in the national halls of discourse. No, the climate action, no? Protection of our biodiversity. That is something that we, the Katatubo, can bring into the Senate. No?
And we will take this short break. We're speaking right now with former Congressman Teddy Baguilat. We will continue our conversation, up-close conversation with Teddy right after this. And we'll also give you a glimpse of what to expect once authorities allow more passengers in public transport tomorrow. Details next, right here on CNN Philippines. News you can use, news you can trust. Welcome back to the final word on CNN Philippines. I'm Rico Hizon. We still have with us for up-close senatorial aspirant Teddy Baguilat. And Teddy, we have 2 minutes before the end of this interview, and I would like to ask you 6 questions, and please answer them with just a yes or a no. The first question is, do you favor easier public access to the statement of assets, liabilities, and net worth of the President, Vice President, and the members of Congress?
Yeah, definitely yes.
Do you support lifting foreign ownership limits in the Constitution?
No.
Do you favor the re-imposition of the death penalty for drug-related crimes?
No.
Should a sitting president be allowed to run for vice president in the next election?
No.
Do you favor resuming peace talks with communist rebels?
Oh, yeah.
And should the country be more aggressive in protecting its maritime interests in the West Philippine Sea?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And finally, Teddy, a brief message on why our kababayan should vote for you in the Senate in 2022.
Yeah, let's bring in other voices, no? Representing indigenous peoples, representing the fight for nature, fight for the environment, because it's something that I've been campaigning for in the past 9 years in Congress. It's also bring in variety in our national discourse. No? Is the reason why we are not having a lot of progressive laws that address the roots of our problems is because we have the elite class in the Senate who are entrenched because they are the ones that are elected time and again. No? So it's high time that we bring in other voices from a variety of sectors, no, in our society into the Senate.
Thank you so much for joining us on Up Close, Senatorial Aspirant Teddy Baguilat.